Hey, Beth.
Hi, Amelia.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Amelia.
Hey. So this week is a little different. In just a couple of minutes, we're about to start a really amazing episode we did with Brendan Shay, who's an awesome paranormal investigator out of West Virginia.
And a really good interviewee.
And he's great. But we recorded this a couple of weeks ago. So, we always say we're in the past, but in this one, we're, way in the past. And since being in the past, we've done some really cool stuff, huh?
We have.
I had the chance to do a mini interview with the owner of the brand new Witchboard Museum in Salem, Massachusetts.
And I had the opportunity to interview the writer of the Cirque of the Dead show that is coming to Boston in October.
Yeah. So on this episode, it's going to start. And then at the end of Brendan's interview, you're going to hear 2 more interviews. And then we're going to get right back to our drive-by ghosting. So it's going to be a little out of sync. So we just wanted to tell you up top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go.
Ghost Hunting in New England.
Your favorite spooky podcast. Hey everyone, happy Wednesday and welcome to Ghost Hunting in New England with your host Amelia.
And Beth.
And today we are doing something so cool. We are interviewing Brendan Shay of the podcast Serial Spirits. Do you have anything else?
No.
All right, so if we don't have anything else, I think we should get Brendan here on the phone.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're here with Brendan Shay of the Serial Spirits podcast out of West Virginia.
Hi, Brendan.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Not a lot. How's everything down there?
Everything's good. I just started a new job down here about a month ago, and I'm working for a university, so it's a little less stressful than where I came from, but everything's good. Everything's good.
Good. No, that's awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you on here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Serial Spirits and what you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, Serial Spirits. Where do I start with Serial Spirits? Well, me and Annie Weibel is my beautiful, lovely co-host, like I say in the beginning of every episode. But me and her both have a paranormal investigating background. We've both been doing it for a combined 20 years. We both have done independent radio shows for a long time. She still does one on Paranormal Warehouse every Tuesday. But we decided, hey, we wanted to take a different approach to it. And we started out with Serial Spirits, where it was supposed to be like hauntings that are caused by crimes. And it just kind of went everywhere from there to we talk about a lot of crime stuff, a lot of murder, a lot of serial killers. But we also will take a break from that in a week and talk about Bigfoot, or we'll talk about we just released an episode this week on the Dyatlov Pass. I can never say it right. But yeah, it's about these hikers that went up in this mountain in Russia and then they died mysteriously. So we do all kinds of weird stuff. I don't know. We're just about every kind of mysterious thing, and that's what our podcast really covers. We started it about a year ago. We're on episode 21 now. In between the full episodes, we do what we call serial snippets, which you guys have been on. You guys have been on an episode of that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you.
And we take whether I do it or Annie does it, we take turns sometimes. The last couple we've done together. But we'll just kind of look at, crime news, stuff that's happening in crime news. We'll bring on guests and talk about their podcast or things they have going on. And, it's just kind of a break from the murder and the gore in a full episode. So, yeah, we enjoy doing it, and we got a lot more stuff coming out. So we're excited to keep going.
Well, that is very cool. That's so awesome. So what got you into all of this? How did you start as a paranormal investigator?
Goes back years. I guess I'll just start from the beginning because I've told this story a lot. And when I was a kid, I lived in this small apartment with my parents in Staten Island, New York. Since as long as I can remember, I've always had a photographic memory. And I can remember this apartment vividly. And I was 7 years old when we moved to Ohio from New York. But I remember being a kid, and I remember my brother George was in a crib. And we weren't sitting, we were in bed. And our parents had put us to bed. And I remember laying on this little toddler bed that I had, and I look over at the wall and I see what looks like the shadow of a man in a rocking chair. And he's rocking back and forth. And the thing that stuck out to me the most about this guy was his foot was tapping to you see old people sitting there listening to their old music, and their foot just kind of sits there and taps in time. And that's what stuck with me the most. And as I'm sitting here watching this, trying to realize what I'm looking at, and this is in my child brain, I see this shadow of what looks like a little kid, and he climbs up into this lap of this, what looks like an old man. And they both are, listening to what looks like music. And the weird thing is the little kid's foot started to tap in time too, but it was offbeat compared to the other foot that was tapping. And to me, that stuck out in my brain so vividly, and I don't know why. And I always remembered it, and it just was hard to explain even at a young age. And I wasn't scared or anything. It just intrigued me more than anything. So as I got older, we moved to Ohio, and I just started getting into all these creepy books. I would go to the library and check out books on UFOs or ghosts or whatever I could get my hands on. And it was funny because I was on
these were pre-internet days, right? And we actually had to travel to get our good paranormal information. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about this with Rob Oakey because he kind of mentioned it. The Unbelievers did a snippet with us too, a serial snippet. And we were talking about a similar story. Rob was talking about how he got started, and he was saying he went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school too. And he said he would check out all these books too. So here I am, this kid in Catholic school, and I'm checking out all these books on UFOs and ghosts. And it was weird because, Catholicism, they don't really believe in a lot of that stuff. But they had the books in the library, so I was like, oh, well, I'm going to check it out. But I read everything I could get my hands on, everything. And for a long time, when everyone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said a parapsychologist. That's what I wanted to do. I love the Ghostbusters movie. I loved Unsolved Mysteries. I love anything that just made me think just like there's something else out there. Actually, I'm sitting down in our podcasting room right now, like Fox Mulder, and right in front of me is the I Want to Believe poster, just sitting there like a sign, like, yeah, I do. I want to believe. I believe in all this stuff. And I, just like I said, read everything I could. And then in 2003, my mother passed away, and I had all these weird things happen to me that could have only been her. Whether people believe that, whether when you die you come back or you want to stay with your family members for a certain amount of time, I don't know. But there's certain things that have happened to me after she died that I was like, there's no way. It's got to be her. It's got to be her showing me something. So it really propelled me to want to, instead of reading about it, go out and find it. So I started like everybody did, I was watching all the TV shows, and I'm like, I want to go do that. But the more I got into it, the more that I seen patterns and things, and I really wanted to get into the science behind it too. So I started researching all that stuff, and every piece of equipment that I would get, I would research everything about it. And I don't know, it just kind of spiraled from there. And I ended up, just doing everything I could to try to disprove that this stuff was even real, just to keep it credible, to kind of put science to it. And I, was on many different teams, and I used to go and do a lot of residential investigations to try to help families and that kind of thing. I'm an electrician by trade, so it really helped going into some of these homes. Like people would say, oh, we have flickering lights. Well, you can walk up to the wall and smack the wall, and all of a sudden the lights go on and off. Well, the switch is bad, so you change the switch out, bam, paranormal problem goes away. So I just became that guy that tried to disprove all this stuff. And then it just, it just led from there to going to bigger places and exploring more and getting into more sides of the paranormal. And one of the things that I think that really defined, I would say, my paranormal career is realizing that we have to do all this stuff for ourselves, but we also have a due diligence to keep history alive and everything. And I started getting to, with a group of people where we started preserving history too. We'd go to these buildings, we try to save them from ruins. And I tell people all the time, you have to understand where you came from to understand where you're going. And, you can't go into a place and try to contact some of these spirits if you don't know anything about them. And the history is the most important thing behind all of it. So I just learned everything that I could everywhere that I went. And I think it made me a better investigator that way. But I mean, to make a long story short, that's how I got into this field.
That's really cool. That's awesome. So as you were trying to go through and disprove all these things, are there any events that you just didn't have an explanation for?
Yeah, it's when you're spending hours in a place, and you guys know, you go to locations and you spend hours and you set up equipment and you set up, especially audio, it's a headache, man. It really is a headache. And there's a lot of times where you get those false positives. And one of the most important things that I've learned is to go back to a place over and over again to get the best evidence. You can't just do it one time. You know what I mean? You get this voice, you capture a voice on EVP, and it's like, oh, that was a voice. But then again, well, am I sure? Let me go back and debunk it. A lot of places you can't do that because it's a one-time thing. You know, you have to spend money to go to this big location and so on and so forth. But I was in a home, and this actually aired on an episode of Paranormal Survivor on a Destination America. And we did this investigation, and I unfortunately had the opportunity to go back a couple times, but this family was being basically uprooted from their home. They were scared to even sleep in their rooms. They were all in one, you know, in the middle living room every single night. The kids, the parents, everybody sleeping in this room because the kids couldn't sleep in their own beds because something was messing with them. And, you know, you go in there, you do your normal checks, you look for your high EMF readings, you try to look for gases leaking into the house that cause hallucinations. You know, you look for electrical problems, all the things, you know, and but when it's all said and done, and you've done this and you're looking at this just normal house, it's like, okay, well, now let's get into looking for something supernatural. And a lot didn't happen until the second time we went back. Me and just one other investigator went back, and, you know, I let him go through, check everything, you know, double check everything we had checked previously the first time. He came up with the same conclusion. Things are, you know, it's pretty normal. It's a pretty normal situation. You got to do background checks on the family. Like when I did it, it got pretty intense because I would ask very personal questions. I'd get down to the nitty gritty of things. And I think it's important to do that because you don't want, you know, people wasting your time or just bullying you know. We're sitting there investigating. All of a sudden we hear this whistle. We're like, that was weird. Well, that was one of the claims, is that the kids would come downstairs. Their dad used to whistle at them, you know, when he wanted them to come down or something. So they'd come down and be like, yeah, Dad. And he's like, I didn't whistle at you. So that was one of the claims. So to hear that, first of all, was like, okay, you know, this is kind of weird. Nobody's in the house, just two of us. We're hearing whistling. It definitely came from another room. So then you investigate that. So it came down to, we were clueless at what was going on in this house, completely, utterly clueless. And we got to look at the evidence. And we got all these weird male voice EVPs. And I wish I could remember the guy's name that he said, but we thought we heard somebody come in the front door. So we're upstairs, and it's a very small house. So I kind of walked down the hallway a little bit and yell, hello, somebody come in here? And didn't hear a response. Well, going back and listening to the audio, this was the guy's name. You hear me say, is anybody downstairs? And you say, and we get a response from a gruff old man, and it says, it's Mr. Nichols. So when we heard that, we're like, who the heck is Mr. Nichols? So we're like, you know, doing the research of the property, trying to find all the previous homeowners, and I can't find anybody with that name.
So just to clarify, did you hear this with your own ears, or you just heard it on the EVP later?
This was when I came out and asked who's there. I heard nothing. And then we were listening to the audio. Yes, we caught a clear EVP, but it only appeared on one digital recorder, and it was the one that we had at the bottom of the stairs. So it was like, okay. So then, you know, we're researching more, and the guy that I was with, he did a lot of the evidence review. So as I'm starting to do research more, he's sending me more EVPs, and it's just all these off-the-wall EVPs. Like, we got another whistle, somebody whistling at us, and we got a clear get out from upstairs. You know, this was one of the most compelling residential cases I did because these people had kids, and these kids were telling us all this stuff, and everything that they were saying was happening to us while we're in here, and we're catching clear evidence of it. And I had no clear definitive answer for them. Doing the research, I found out in this area that there was a huge flood in the early 1900s, and it killed over 100 people, and about 60 of those people were never recovered. So, and this area was their house was right in the middle of this area. So I thought maybe it had something to do with that, because one of the claims the little girl had, she said that she saw a woman, and I forget the woman, she named her. It was some weird name, some weird old name, but she said when she saw her, the woman looked like she was soaking wet, like her hair was black, and like, it was almost like the chick who climbs out of the well in The Ring is basically what it sounded like. But she said she was like soaking wet, and it looked like she just got out of a swimming pool. But when I heard that, after I had done this research, I was like, wow, that's a pretty incredible claim because, this area obviously was a flood area at a certain point. So could it have been somebody who died in the flood? I don't know.